The Chicago Bears made a signing to the practice squad yesterday, not a substantial one, but we're going to look at that, plus all the players that the Bears worked out yesterday, as well as 3 trade targets listed for the Chicago Bears. But more importantly, we're going to ask, where's Ryan Poles and what the hell is he doing? We get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start talking about this. This is a question that a lot of you guys have been asking, and I do think it's a very fair question to ask at that. What the hell is Ryan Poles doing right now? Now, we'll talk about some moves that he did make to the practice squad and things like that here over the last couple of days as well as working some players out. But a question that's on every Bears fan mind is, with all the injuries, all the plethora of injuries, and seeing moves happening around the NFL, where is Ryan Poles in making moves to help this team where it is right now and be better than what it is? Because this is still a team that, things aren't done yet for the Chicago Bears, right? We still are, yes, we're 4-3, and this is a team that's right in the thick of things still in the NFC, and they're not out of it. I talked about on yesterday's episode how the next 4 games are hugely important for the Chicago Bears if they want to stay in that race in the NFC to get a playoff berth or a wild card or whatever you want to look at. The Bears have to really, over the next 4 games, they have to go at least 2-2. Ideally 3-1 to kind of stay afloat before, they head into the last leg of the season. But Ryan Poles has been pretty quiet since the start of the season. And considering that this season started off with injuries to major players like TJ Edwards, Kyler Gordon, Jaelan Johnson, right? And don't get me wrong, with a new head coach, there's always going to be more of a period of kind of, evaluation, right? And seeing what this new coaching staff was going to be able to do with these players before you really kind of figure out any gaps. But we knew that the defensive end was a question, and the pass rush has been a question, right? We knew that was going to be a thing for this team regardless. We knew that running back was a position that, despite drafting Kyle Monangai and the promise that he does have, that was a little bit thin in the position group, right? And then we saw those things really be evident. And then we had 2 weeks of a solid run game, of a solid run defense as well. But the injuries that keep surrounding this team have raised that I think a proper question and realistic question on what is Ryan Poles doing? How is he evaluating this, and what's going to happen next? And I think that's a fair question for anybody to ask with this team. We just, Ryan Poles is at times is more active than others, right? And, shout out to him for yesterday, for example. The Chicago Bears signed, defensive end Jonathan Gervin to the practice squad. They also activated Austin Booker, which is something that we already expected. They also worked out a number of players as well as offensive tackle Jackson Barton, center Jake Hansen, guard Royce Newman, offensive tackle Andrew Stuber, linebacker DJ Johnson, linebacker Rashard Weaver, and defensive end Jeremiah Martin, who played in Washington. So, listen, I think that alone does acknowledge that there is some notice that the edge and pass rush is a problem here, right? But then when you look at the fact that Dayo Odeyingbo was given $48 million in the offseason to help alleviate some of the pressure of Montez Sweat, right? Montez Sweat does lead in sacks now, thank God for that, but it hasn't necessarily been the season that you paid him to either, right? It does, and the Bears, I think, are also showing with those workouts that they're showing their hands in the case that they aren't necessarily as confident in the offensive line either when you're bringing in those workouts, right? Now, we've heard rumors that Braxton Jones could be a hot trade target on the market, and the Bears could look to move him and some other things there. Theo Benedict has been, a nice upgrade in some areas, but he's been a struggle in some other areas as well, right? There's no doubt about that. So you're looking at all of that. And the question now that many people are asking, now I do think this is more a speculative point. Jeff Hughes of Sports Mockery mentioned this, right? He said this a little months ago, is that, is the personnel authority fully on Ryan Poles? And I guess we'll see when it comes to that. I still think it is. I get it that there are going to be people who like to write articles and things like that. They're right. Was Ben Johnson really in charge? Is he taking over? Ben Johnson's basically said he don't even want to do that if he could. That sticker is irritating the hell out of me. There you go, guys. Little peek behind. The sticker was irritating me. And so there's going to be some speculation on that, and that's fine and dandy. But I think that the lack of aggression from Chicago Bears is a little bit of concerning, right? When you look at the last, he made 2 trades in August, right? Last season, and then he made another one at the trade deadline, right? And the fact that it's been fairly quiet around the Chicago Bears and any potential moves does raise some question on, like, is this team kind of, just okay with going the way that the season is going? Is Ryan Poles going to make an aggressive move to kind of improve this team? I said before, coming out of the bye week, and especially now with only one more game left before the trade deadline, so we're coming up against the wire when it comes to this, is that if it depends on how the Bears view it, right? With the Bears being 4-3, right, almost at a 500 record, they could very well be 500 heading into the trade deadline. You can look at that in one or two ways. You can look at it and say, this team isn't competitive enough for us to give up some picks, and we feel confident in using the draft picks that we have, just singing out the season, using the draft picks we have. We feel like we can get a really good running back in the first round or whatever position group you're focused on. Or do you look at it and say, this team, with the right moves at the right positions, we can be a playoff team? What do you value more? Do you value your draft position more, right? Or do you and draft picks more, right? The allocation that you have there, or do you value getting this team competing and really trying to go on a postseason run here, a run to a postseason appearance? I don't know about a run in the postseason, right? I think that's a fair place to ask if that's where this team is right now, if that's what they're trying to evaluate. Are they trying to look at this thing and see which direction that they want to go? And listen, I feel like, especially for a running back, you can get a running back for a day 3 pick. But if you're talking about making a move on the defensive line or making a move for a cornerback, depending on the level of cornerback, you're probably looking more at a day 2 pick, right? Or something like that. Maybe even a day 1 if your pick's projected to be lower. So it comes down to risk tolerance. I use that word a lot. For those that don't know, most of my work history came in finance and work in the stock market. So risk tolerance is a word and a phrase that I've used a lot. And I think it is apt here. I think it does apply here, is that it does come down to that risk tolerance. And how do you view that for this team, right? Do you are you risk adverse? Are you more risk forward, right? And I would say this, I'm not mad at the Bears giving up a day 2. I wouldn't even be necessarily mad at them giving up a day 1 pick, depending on the level of player that they're trying to go out there and get. That's all it comes down to. It comes down to the return. Now, I will say this as well, considering that the return for Montez Sweat initially looked really good, even though we didn't give up, a day 1 pick or a day 2 pick, right? It looked great at first, and then it fell off the cliff, right? Now, some could say that it was the scheme or health or whatever else it is, but no doubt that Montez Sweat has not been what Bears fans were hoping he was going to be when we acquired him, right? You look at the Chase Claypool trade. That was a washout. It didn't work. So, it's been some solid moves, some questionable moves when it comes down to Ryan Poles. And I get it why everybody is clamoring, not everybody, but people are clamoring and asking, what are we going to do? When are we going to make this move? Can we get this move done so we can move on as a team and we can fight and compete better? And so when you look at the number of injuries that the Bears have, right? Our whole starting cornerback crew missed last game. And so, yeah, you can make a move for a cornerback. I don't think that's going to be too expensive. But if you're talking about the upward moves of getting in an edge that's going to really change the dynamic of the Bears pass rush here, those do get a little bit more expensive. But that's Poles' job, right? Ryan Poles' job is to look at where this team is and continually finding ways and places to improve this football team. That's his job. And when things have been quiet, I'm fine with stuff being quiet if the results end up showing, right? If you end up showing the results. And I don't need to hear from my front office every single week. I don't need to hear from the president every single week. I don't need to hear from our GM and assistant GM every single week. I don't need to do that. I want to hear from the head coach. I want to hear about the guys going day to day in the locker room. That's the little people I want to hear from day to day and week to week. But I want to see the results of the actions and the view of trying to build this team from this front office. That's what I want to see. And that part has been lacking. And I think that's fair to say, even if you're the most optimistic Chicago Bears fan. So, some of the heat coming towards the Chicago Bears is warranted. I think that just is what it is. It's warranted when it comes down to it. But this team, this team, as it stands right now, is in a weird place. And I try to acknowledge that and be fair in that because you're in a place where, yeah, you're still evaluating, right? You haven't gotten your run game going, right? But this team has improved, and it does look like it has a direction in a lot of ways, despite what some of the more knee-jerky Chicago Bears fans would have you believe. It does look like it is moving in a direction. The question now comes down to when you have injuries to so many pieces, do you get more aggressive about going out there and solving it so you don't have a wasted season, right? Because listen, it's always easy to look at next season, and there's always going to be a next year. You don't have to get everything done in 1 year. I know that as fans, as football fans, as fans of our team, we want our team to solve everything year in and year out. And that's just not realistic. It's just not going to happen that way all the time. You're not going to solve everything in 1 year, despite what other teams moves may be made around the offseason, things like that. You're not going to fix everything. And even the best teams in the league still have some questions or some soft spots on their roster, in the rotation, or whatever. But for Bears fans that keep getting things to get excited over, Ben Johnson coming here excited over, having the number 1 overall pick in Caleb Williams, like that year, that was something to get excited over. And for the season, and for us to feel like we're never the ones that could really truly catch our footing and move forward, like I get why fans feel the way they do. I'm not blaming fans for feeling the way that they do, right? I'm not blaming fans for thinking that every single move and trade rumor that pops up the Chicago Bears should be involved in. I'm not blaming Chicago Bears fans for that because at the end of the day, that you should want your team to do that, right? But I think overall, when it comes down to it, this Bears team or this front office and Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, the people running this franchise and making the decisions there, we just want to see the results. We want to see that you're doing something, that you're recognizing something. And being right now quiet in a stage where the Bears have, they won 4 in a row. That's great. Nobody's really thinking about it then. You now lost 1. You sit at 4-3 in the season. We have tons of players out with injury. People want to see some results, and I can't blame those people for that, right? But with that said, let's talk about some of the players that the Bears could target, right? Because talking about trades and all that makes no sense if you don't have legitimate, real targets that the Bears could go over, right? And so there was an article over on Bears Wire that pointed out 3 potential trade targets for the Chicago Bears, and I love the angle that they took on this. They looked at players that are going to be free agents at the end of the season because those guys usually can be gotten for a little bit cheaper, right? And so the first guy that they bring up is defensive end Dre'Mont Jones with the Tennessee Titans. Pointing out here that the Titans have already announced that they're sellers after moving on from Roger McCreary earlier this week. Now the Bears going to take advantage of Dre'Mont Jones, who racked up 3 straight games with a sack. The Bears' defensive line has come up short in this area lately to no one's surprise. Montez Sweat has made his presence known here and there, but other than that, the Bears are getting nothing out of 2025 free agent Dayo Odeyingbo. Here's the thing. Dre'Mont Jones, what would it take to get him? And you look at the Titans and where they are as a team and all that type of stuff, I do think you can get Dre'Mont for a decent pick without breaking the bank, without giving up one of your most important draft capital pieces, because it seems like the Titans at this point are in sell mode. They're trying to sell. They're trying to get most assets back. They're trying to stack those assets. And Dre'Mont is 28 years old, out of Ohio State. Shout out to OSU, OHIO. But you look at him, he's been a fairly healthy player. 2 straight seasons of playing 17 games. He played 16 and 13 in the 2 seasons before that between Denver and Seattle. He's playing with the Tennessee Titans this year. 8 games played so far. He has 11 solo tackles, 22 total tackles, 3 sacks so far in this year, 1 fumble forced as well. I wouldn't mind him coming to this. Now, it doesn't fix anything. I think what we're doing right now is we're trying to add and strengthen weaknesses, right? With these type of moves, you're trying to strengthen weaknesses. You're not trying to necessarily fix anything long term. And Dre'Mont would be a player that I would say can come in and definitely help the Chicago Bears in their pass rush, and something that we need to improve quite considerably. And like I said, with the workouts that we had, it's clear that Ryan Poles or somebody in that front office also recognizes we need to improve the damn pass rush. So Dre'Mont coming in here, wouldn't necessarily hate that. I think that that's a solid move overall. Next player that they point out, Jaelan Phillips with the Miami Dolphins, is a 26-year-old, 6'5", 263-pound linebacker / DN, depending on what the scheme is that you have him in. And this is a former first-round pick, right? And the question then becomes down to how much would it take to get him? He had 15.5 sacks over his first 2 seasons, right? Then he totaled 9.5 sacks in his last 20 games. That dates back since the 2023 season. So could a change of scenery reinvigorate Jaelan back to what he was and what he looked like he was going to be when he was initially drafted in 2021? That's the question that you have to ask here. Now, 2024, he had 1 sack. He only played 4 games, though. So far this season, he does have 2 sacks across 8 games. Again, this would be one of those moves where you're trying to. This is similar to like what he did with Chase Claypool. I'm not saying that Phillips is going to end up like Claypool, but Ryan Poles went off the promise of what Claypool could be. It ended up not working out. Bringing in Jaelan Phillips here would be going back to the promise of what he could be, right? And if you can reinvigorate that, he's only 26 years old, and you look at it, he played 17 games all 17 games his first 2 years. Then it was 8, then it was 4. It's been 8 so far. So health has been a factor of why the fall off has been there. If you think that health is not going to be as big of a concern, I would not be mad at all at the Chicago Bears going out there and getting Jaelan Phillips. I think that it would be depth, right? Reportedly, he can be got for no more than a 4th rounder. I'm not mad at taking that chance at a former 1st round pick if you're giving up a 4th rounder to get him. That's just my opinion, right? So we'll see. But let me know what you guys think on that aspect of it. Lastly, Alontae Taylor, the cornerback with the Saints. Now, keep in mind, this is the cornerback position is not one that I necessarily like. If Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, are these guys are going to be healthy? I don't know if you want to spend assets to get another corner in here because you still have Zay Frazier, you still have Jalen Johnson. Like your cornerback position is set for a few years. Now, the difference about this is, again, it's an expiring contract. He's a free agent at the end of the year. So when you look at him and his production, this is a guy that has a sack on the year. He had 4 sacks last season. He's had 2 interceptions across his NFL career, but he does have 4 passes deflected. And when you look at it, he has double-digit passes deflected in every season of his career. This season isn't over, but in every season of his career. And I can see this guy coming in here. He's better than Deshaun Wright. And I think that that's something that could definitely help you in that area. So listen, he can play the outside. He can play the slot, which can free you up to do some other things. The Saints clearly aren't going anywhere anytime soon. This would be another guy that Dennis Allen would have some familiarity with. So if you're able to bring him in here and Dennis Allen signs off on it, I feel pretty confident about that if I'm the Chicago Bears. So I wouldn't necessarily be mad at this move either. If the Bears decided to do this, I think that it would make sense for where the Bears are, where they have injuries. And again, if it ends up working out greatly, you can sign him at the end of the year, right? So if you're able to get him for a 4th or 5th rounder, I think that that's a no-brain for it to shore up and help strengthen a position that's been weakened by injuries. And that, keep in mind, is a hugely important role for Dennis Allen. The cornerback, the defensive backs are really important under Dennis Allen's system. So if you're able to go out there and get a guy that can help solve some of that, why not do it? So that's the thing. Like, there are options out here. And I think that gets all us back to the original topic. There are options for Ryan Poles. There are some big swing options. There's some bunt options. And there's some options that are just smart moves to help strengthen where your team is at. And I think that, as Bears fans, it's not wrong to want to see Ryan Poles go out there and try to make something happen. But again, as I like to always practice here, do it in reality, right? It's not going to be realistic for the Bears to make a swing for Max Crosby, right? But that doesn't mean that the Bears can't make smaller moves to help improve the team where it stands now in further evaluation of the longer-term big moves and big swings that Ryan Poles eventually, does need to make at some point in time. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that one. Last quick topic before we get out of here. I want to get on this with Rome Odunze. He had this quote. He says this, right? He was asked by CBS Sports in regards to the new tone set by Ben Johnson, saying he comes at us with a great approach, understanding how we're feeling, what he needs to demand from us, and the expectation. I feel like those things have matched up very well and married up well. That's part of the reason we were able to get on the right track with that 4-game winning streak. His message this week is that our preparation is going to get us back on track. And so that's great. That's great. If you need to prepare, when you see a team that's well prepared and that trusts the preparation that they do week to week, that's when you come out and see the execution, right? And I'm not talking about the penalties. That's a completely different thing. I mean, execution in your plays and those type of things. And so we'll see what happens with that one, right? But Rome Odunze also pointed out in this that he wouldn't mind incorporating some of Devin Hester's game into what he does, right? He says this, I might have to hit up Coach Richard Hightower to get in the return game too. We'll see. But he was a special player. Hopefully I can emulate just a little bit of that. Our special teams has been struggling. Devin Duvernay has been struggling. Listen, I don't want to put Rome at more risk. And to me, I was open to like trying Luther Burden out at kick return sometimes. Hell, even Kyle Monangai to put the ball in his hands. But I do think the Bears do need to figure out something. But I think what I just take away from this is Rome Odunze is willing to do whatever it takes for this Bears team to win. Let's go out there and take advantage of that. But that's my time for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Shy Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.